What's up, guys? Um, Today I'll be talking about First Love by Ivan Turgenev. This is the Isaiah Berlin translation. Now, I don't know a lick of Russian, so I can't tell you if it's good or not compared to the original. But this is a Penguin classic, so I assume it's a decent translation. I thought it was pretty smooth to read. It didn't have like antiquated language, but it also didn't sound like too modern and quirky. So I like the translation. I think it read pretty well. Um, I'm gonna be reading off some notes. It's probably gonna sound a little stilted, but yeah. First Love is a short story written by Russian author Ivan Turgenev in 1860. When a group of older men starts to reminisce about their first experiences with love, the main character Vladimir Petrovich says that he has to think about it. His story is too long and detailed to tell everyone, so he decides to write it out in the format of a letter, which is becomes the perspective of the whole novel. Vladimir's first love happened when he was 16 years old. So he got some brand new neighbors next door, which included two women. It's Princess Zenaida, a 21-year-old girl, and her mother. Her mother is a boorish, coarse, ill-mannered woman who asked who she asked for Vladimir's family for help and for money. So already off to like a bad start for a neighbor, but on the bright side, Princess Zenaida, she's beautiful, she's charming, she's pretty elegant, and even though she has the name princess or she has that prestigious title, she actually is. They're pretty poor. Zenaida is beautiful and young, and she attracts the attention of a lot of the Russian bachelors in their area, including Vladimir. So even though Vladimir is only 16, he actually gets to hang out with her a lot, and he's invited to these little parties that she has at her house where she basically dupes a bunch of Russian bachelors and just toys with them, plays around with them, because she has them wrapped around her fingers. So they'll pretty much do anything for this young woman's hand in marriage. And Zenaida is well aware of this power that she has. So even though Vladimir is just a student, he's only 16 years old. She teases him. That's the right word. She teases him. The other, because the other suitors, they're soldiers, they're artists, they're much older, they're way more suitable for Zenaida, but Vladimir is just so in love with her, he's so infatuated with her that he can't stop thinking about her. Everything he does relates to her. I mean, he's 16 years old, so I think everyone can kind of relate to when they were that age and they had like that first love. And I think Turgenev does a really good job at actually writing out those feelings, explaining those feelings. So I think, like for example, I can remember when I was 16, but I don't know if I could write a whole story about it. So Turgenev is really, it's awesome. What he does is that he kind of, for lack of a better word, is able to transmit it onto paper. Whereas I would just be like, yeah, when I was 16, I had a big crush on this girl, but yeah, that's all I would say about it. So yeah, Turgenev does a great job at capturing the real but super dramatic feelings that you feel at that age. Vladimir's only mission now is to get Zenaida, and he'll do anything to get her. Throughout the novel, there's like a dreamlike atmosphere, and it's helped by the playful banter that occurs with all the characters. It's sort of like a springtime, easygoing novel. I mean, until the end, but we'll get to that later. But for the most part, it reads like a very airy, light-hearted, for lack of a better word, cute story. Really, I say cute because the suitors are put into funny little situations, and so is Vladimir, and it's funny to see them go through that just for this, just for this random new girl in town. But yeah, like I said, the story isn't all fun and games. As Vladimir gets closer to Zenaida, the other men get jealous. They're kind of shocked that the 16-year-old has more game than them. Unfortunately for Vladimir, Zenaida is just proving to be a massive flirt. She even admits to this. She knows she's super flirtatious, and she enjoys every second of it. There's one part of the story where Vladimir is just kind of chilling on top of this greenhouse that he lives next to. And it's like 14 feet high. And Zinaida walks by and she sees him and says, "If you jump off, that means you love me." And he does it like a dumb idiot 16-year-old who would do anything for a girl. He jumps off and he kind of lays on the floor, sort of like unconscious. And Zenaida's like, "What the heck?" She runs up to him and starts kissing him. She's crying. She's like, "Well, like, what have I done?" But she's kissing him, and Vladimir is totally enjoying this. He actually starts waking up, and in, like that scene in the Sandlot, he's just really enjoying this time that that he's being kissed, which is kind of funny. Um, she realizes that he's awake now and calls him a scoundrel. So yeah, there's some funny stuff in this story. There's a lot of layers to the story too, because you also have to take into account Vladimir's parents, who play a large role in the story. Vladimir's dad is pretty strict, and he's not really a loving father, but he's also not evil or oppressive. Vladimir still looks up to him as like a strong father figure. But it's said in the story that he only married for financial reasons, for security. It's sort of alluded to. I think it's alluded to or explicitly said, but I think he wasted his money or something when he was young, and then he married into like a cushy job, and Vladimir's mom provided like a decent dowry because Vladimir's mom is sort of like this anxious. She's anxious and oh, she's also like 15 years older, like 10 or 15 years older than Vladimir's dad, which usually it's the other way around. So there's probably something fishy going on, and there is something fishy going on. One day, Vladimir's dad is actually he goes horseback riding with Zinaida, and when that happens to Vladimir, he doesn't think much of it. He's just like, "Well, this is kind of random. Like, why is my dad riding riding a horse with our new neighbor?" But whatever, he kind of sleeps it off. Eventually, we come to find that Vladimir's dad is having an affair with Zinaida, and this causes a big shock throughout their neighborhood, their town, and that there was such a scandal that they were prompted to move. Ironically, Vladimir is not upset that his dad had an affair with Zinaida. He actually says his view of his father increased, which is kind of strange. And he actually says, "Let psychologists explain this contradiction if they can." First Love is said to be autobiographical to some extent, but I have nothing deeper to add than that. That's just what it said in the introduction. So they moved away, not too far away, but far enough. One day he's going horseback riding with his dad, and his dad takes a little break, and his dad just walks away, and he leaves the horse with Vladimir. His dad takes a really long time, and Vladimir's like, "What the heck? Where you at, Dad?" And he walks off with he leaves the two horses behind, and he walks off to look for his dad, and he sees him in the far distance, and he sees him talking to a woman in a windowsill. And Vladimir's like, "What's going on?" And he looks closely, and he overhears a woman basically saying like this can't happen anymore, or this has to end. And because of that, Vladimir's dad smacks her hand with his horsing club. And this was kind of brutal for Vladimir because it turns out it's Zenaida, and he's so confused by what just happened, and it actually kind of scars him because he says he has nightmares about this scene, and now he's actually confused and weirded out. He's like, "What's going on?" It's sort of implied that Vladimir's dad died from grief or stress because he had just gotten a letter from from someone asking for large amounts of money, and because we find out that Zenaida married someone else, it's implied that she probably needed a dowry, and she asked Vladimir's dad for money. And Vladimir's dad does say to Vladimir, he kind of tells him like this like macho dad dad lore comment where he's like, "Don't fall in love. Like it's all just a scam." Which Vladimir's like, "What? What are you talking about, man?" So yeah, Vladimir's dad dies. Years would pass, and he graduated from school, and he's in town, and he overhears from a friend that Zenaida's in town, and she's just been married, and she's pregnant. And Vladimir's like, "Whoa, like I want to go see her. Like what the heck? This was like my first crush." And as he goes to see her, she actually dies in childbirth, which just kind of breaks him. It shocks him. The Indian sort of serves as a meditation on memories because just not that long ago he was so madly in love and he had these palpable feelings over this one girl, and now all of a sudden she's just gone, vanished from the earth. And the only thing he has are these dear memories that he's gonna hold on to forever. He's gonna remember. He's gonna remember Zaynab for the rest of his life, and that's all he has now. And Vladimir, throughout the story, is never depicted as religious or anything. But after the death, he's prompted to pray for himself, for Zenaida, and for his family. So the whole thing was just a blow to, just a blow to his whole being. Something I didn't mention is that I love Turgenev's writing. It's really evocative. He paints portraits of the landscape, and he does really, he does a really great job at detailing the small details within the characters, what they're thinking, what they're gonna do next. Um, so I wouldn't really call it like a psychological novel, but he has a pretty strong grasp on how people act, and the way that characters interact with each other is just pretty cool. Especially to have that in such a short story. Um, it's pretty awesome. I only saved two quotes from the whole book. One of them is, and I quote, "Zenaida's tears were altogether too much for me. I simply didn't know what to think and was on the point of tears myself. I was, after all, still a child, in spite of my 16 years. I had no thought for anything or anybody. I gave myself up to fruitless speculation and was always looking for secluded places. I became particularly fond of the ruined greenhouse. I used to climb, I remember, onto the high wall, settle myself on it and sit there, a youth afflicted by such misery, solitude, and grief that I would be overcome with self-pity. How I reveled in these melancholy feelings, how I adored them." Another quote I liked at the very end is when he says, "What has come of all that I had hoped for? And now when the shades of evening are beginning to close in upon my life, what have I left that is fresher, dearer to me than the memories of that brief storm that came and went so swiftly one morning in the spring?" Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice. That's all I got. All I got, man. Cheers.